So what I've got for you today is a overview of what you should do when someone is struggling, when they're triggered, when they're overwhelmed, and they're opening up to you. They're in the middle of a breakdown and they've called or come over or you've met them and you're not quite sure. This is sort of like, I guess, psychological first aid. Now, I'm not giving to you this information from an expert perspective, but it is informed based on what I know I need in the moment, what I've been reading about and what I've noticed has helped other people when I've been the one that has had to sort of respond to their overwhelm, their triggers, their emotional needs when they're in crisis or in trauma. Now, what I'm going to do for you is, just in this little introduction, is give you a bit of a summary, because I realize that the rest of this podcast is a little bit haphazard and a little bit sort of rambling. And I say that with the caveat letting you know that I recorded this after myself breaking down, the day or two prior, and sort of still reeling from what I needed, what I received, and what I would have loved to have received. And I realized that, I hadn't really thought through the process of what I needed in that moment. And I am certain that a lot of people haven't either, because it's confronting, it's overwhelming, it's shocking, it's confusing, and there's no roadmap. So what I hope to do here is to really just, give you a little bit of a roadmap to give you some actions that you can do. Once again, if you notice that someone is triggered, if they're overwhelmed, if they're in the middle of a breakdown, if they've revealed to you that they've had some sort of trauma or something's going on, psychologically speaking, that you don't quite necessarily even have to know or understand or have seen happen, but you're faced with caring, comforting, keeping that person safe. So I'll put this in the show notes, these steps, and I sort of address these steps in a bit of a rambling order in the next part of this podcast, but the simple summary of what you should do is this, and the reasons will be made more clear in the second half of the podcast, but the summary is this. Number 1, make sure that the person is safe. Make sure that they are not at risk of overdose, at risk of self-harm, at risk of suicide, or, external dangers. Make sure they are safe. Step 2, make sure you are safe. Make sure you're safe in terms of psychology, in the sense of, can you hold space for this problem? If you can't, if it will tip you over the edge, you need to guard your mental state at all costs and work out a way to get that person help in a way that helps you to stay safe as well. Also, make sure that you are physically safe. Somebody that is, taken a lot of drugs, or if they're in a triggered state, may be a bit more volatile than usual. You need to make sure that you are safe in order to help them. That is a very, it's a minority in all of these things, and I'm speaking from my own personal perspective, but, like all first aid, like all responses, if you become compromised, and the main issue here, I think, is you yourself getting triggered. I'm going to talk about this in a later podcast episode, but keep yourself safe as well. So step 1, make sure that they are safe from immediate danger. Step 2, make sure you are safe, psychologically and physically, both internal, external, and, for each other. Step 3, and I guess this is a clarity for all things, make sure with everything you're doing here, you get and receive consent. However, if someone is at risk of taking their own life or self-harm, there's a bit of a grey area there in which you may feel the need to save someone who is telling you that they don't want to be saved. But obviously that is a situation that I hope you don't have to deal with, but it may be there. You may have to break consent to save someone's life and deal with the ramifications afterwards. But step 3 is you've helped yourself, you've made sure that they're safe immediately. You've made sure that you're safe and can handle the process of going through the next steps. And then the step 3 is you help ground them into the present moment. Get them to focus on what they can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell, highlighting that the present moment is safe. Take some breaths, calm yourself down, feel the ground under your hand or under your feet, eat some food, have some water, put these clothes on, etc. So get them what they need. Do they need medication? Do they have a PRN? That is something like a Valium or something that they take in response to one of these breakdowns. Do they need food? Do they need water? Get them back to feeling safe in the present moment. So the issue with trigger and trauma is that it puts you back into the past, quite literally. MRI scans and all of these things show that the person isn't present in the present moment. Okay, that's just sort of the reality of their mind. So you have to help them check back into the current moment. What can you see, hear, touch, taste, and smell? Co-regulation. So helping them calm down and breathe. If they're okay for it and they want you to, use your hands to comfort them, like a hug or like a hand on the shoulder perhaps, or just like, co-regulated breathing. But whatever you can do to just get them into the present moment. The present moment is real. It is safe. The past, the flashbacks, whatever's going on in their mind is not safe. So keep bringing them back, and through the rest of the steps, just bring them back to the present moment, bring them back to the present moment, bring them back to the present moment. Calming them down. The present moment is safe. Now, step 4. And you're constantly doing step 3, constantly bringing back to the present moment, making sure their needs are being met, all of that stuff. Step 4, practice unconditional positive regard. Whatever they're saying, whatever stuff is coming out of their mouths, whatever they're feeling is valid for them. It may not seem justifiable based on sort of logic or based on what you know to be quote unquote objectively true. But the thing is with trauma, you never have full access to whatever's going on in their mind. They may be saying something to you with their words that sounds like they're lying, sounds like they're completely unjustified. It might be sounding like they're angry at you, and they might very well be. But the reality is that they're probably triggered, and those triggers are leading to tendrils of trauma to the past, and they may not be fully aware of the chain of emotional connectivity and memory connectivity. They're just in this raw emotional state, and they'll be saying a lot of stuff. And regardless of all of whatever's coming out of their mouth, it is important to sit with unconditional positive regard. It is true for them in that moment. Hold space. I like the analogy of being a loving, wise mirror. I see you. I hear you. I feel you. I accept you. I resonate. I empathize. I sympathize. What you're saying and the emotions that are being projected, I'm receiving those and I'm feeling those and I'm here with you. And by the way, back to step 3, you're safe, the present moment. Let's take a breath together. Let's stay present in the present moment. We want to help regulate them. And that's sort of step 5, listen and hear them out. And if it seems appropriate, as they start to calm down, if they start to come back to reality, they're not crying as sort of like extensively, they're not raging, they're not as overwhelmed, they're coming back, they'll be dysregulated, they might be shaking, they might be, sort of sobbing, but as they're coming back down, as they're coming back sort of, I call it like sobering up, listen to them, but also hear them out, and if appropriate, offer or ask what you can do to help, but only do so if you are capable. So if it's on the phone and you are not able to or capable of going and seeing them in person, don't offer it. But if you can, like if you can express to the person what you can do, what they need from you, because as they, sober up, for lack of a better expression, they will ask things of you. They will need things specifically. They will remember things. They might need to be driven somewhere. They might need to be taken somewhere. They might need to have help sorting out the plans for the rest of the day that can no longer are viable because they've, had this mental overwhelm breakdown sort of situation happening. Listen, help them out if appropriate. Step 6, end the conversation, because your conversation will have to come to an end. And it can be a bit scary because when someone's in one of these states, you're like, are you at risk? Like, are you placating me so that you can, go self-harm, suicide, OD, all of these other things later on? So what you do is, once they're calm and, you're sort of seeing that this is an ending, or they're saying like, hey, I'm okay. I want to have some alone time, yada, yada. Like you've helped them back to their house or to a safe place or whatnot. End with a promise. Make them say to you, I promise that I will call you if I am at risk, and get them to be specific. Promise to call me if you're at risk of harming yourself or harming others. Promise me. And make them say promise. And if they don't want to promise to you, make sure that they have someone that they will promise to call. So it might not be you, it might be someone else, but basically make sure that they have promised to reach out if this thing that has happened to them happens again, and if they are at risk of self-harm or suicide or harming others or, drugs and all of that sort of stuff. At risk. Make them promise. And that does a couple of things. It locks them into a sort of verbal binding contract. And people may feel highly suicidal, but, there's been anecdotal stories, and I'm not a good enough scholar to look into the research pre-podcast, so I apologize, but I'm certain that if someone says and promises that they will do something, people don't want to break a promise. And you can even sort of get a little bit meta and say, hey, like I can't promise you. Well, I would prefer you to, promise and, add that little bit of extra pain of a broken promise on top of the horrendous feelings that will come if you were to take your life. So promise me, and make them promise. So then you personally, this is back to your own health, you personally can put down some of the vigilance, and you can put down some of those worries and, relax, because you will be in a struggle state. Because obviously what you're going through helping this person will be hard for you. And we'll get to that. Part 7, follow up. So after you've promised them, tell them that you will follow up, or ask them when they would want you to follow up. Make sure it is within maybe a day, and then perhaps a week out after that. Depends on how close you are, obviously. But make sure that they know that at some future state coming up very soon, you are going to make contact with them, in person, by phone, whatever. You are going to reach out and just check in and say, hey, how you going? I'm checking in. Does that make sense? And the final part 8, is self-care for yourself. After all of this, make sure that you look after yourself. You will be emotionally dysregulated. You will probably be triggered. There'll be things going on in your mind, and it is vitally important that you look after yourself. So then you might want to reach out to someone else as support, and just to talk through what happened and make sure that you're safe. I would highly recommend that person not be the person, obviously, that you've just helped support, because they are vulnerable and won't be able to provide the comfort and support you need. But there is that sort of thing of, trauma bonding and all of these things, where the closest person to you is the person that you'll have to do this for. But that's why I think everyone should have a strong support network of friends and family, if possible, and professionals as well that you can reach out to if possible. And barring all of that, the free helplines that are available in most every country, and digitally online. So they're the 8 steps. I will put those in the show notes, and soon I'll play a little bell, and you'll hear my you'll hear my first attempt at this. And I guess as an aside, you will hear the more raw response, the less thought out response, the way of me trying to process these thoughts when I was still sort of half in it and didn't get all of this from the external world, thus prompting me to realize that, hey, I haven't even thought about what I wanted. I haven't systematized what these steps are. I haven't figured it out. So how can I expect that of other people? And hey, this is what I need. So, if that's of interest, feel free to listen through that. If not, I will see you on the next time. And as always, if you want to work with me, if you would like a coaching, mentoring, or intuitive guidance session, click the links in the show notes and we can work together. We can work together as a way to support you, or to support your ability to support other people, and a variety of other things that I offer. Basically, I help entrepreneurs, spiritualists, and survivors navigate dark nights of the soul and find peace, guiding them from surviving to passionately thriving, offering tips, tools, and techniques to process the past, accept the present, and embrace the future with positivity and purpose. If that sounds like something you're interested in, click that coaching note. All of my prices and everything are up. And yeah, you can check out what's going on. I hide nothing. Everything's out there and open. So yeah, if that's something of interest for you or someone else, check it out. Hit me up. We can start working together. Either way, enjoy the rest of the podcast episode. That will be, a bit of a different look at the same content I just shared, but I share it for posterity. I could just have given, this retake, but I think that it's good to share the reality of mental health. Like I said, I recorded that after having a breakdown and not quite having what I needed met, but also not quite knowing what I needed. So this podcast and the summary notes are sort of my response to myself. Anyway, enjoy. How do you respond when someone shares their trauma with you? When they open up and express darkness, or pain, or unspeakable things that have happened to them. Things that they're now finally giving voice, and they're expecting you to respond in a certain way. They're triggered, they're overwhelmed, they're in a state. This is something that I've long since contemplated, and my answer has evolved and changed over the years. But I think it's an important thing to bring up because, well, for one, it keeps happening. It keeps happening, and it will keep happening to me and to you and to everyone. The sad truth is that life brings pain. Everyone will suffer by the fact of, well, death. Death is a fact of life, and therefore we will all suffer. Injury, illness, all of these things. That's saying nothing about abuse, neglect, addiction, and other forms of tragedy. Point is, most people will have things to share. And often they don't. But if you think the people around you don't have a struggle, aren't battling something, you don't know them. You don't know them well enough. You don't know, you haven't connected, you haven't been open to receiving information, to going deep. You don't have to be. You can choose to live your life in whatever way you like, but to avoid the truth of the reality of the fact that trauma exists, well, is dangerous. Because there will come a time where someone expresses their pain to you, their trauma to you, and you need to know how to respond. So what I want to talk about in this podcast is what I think is the best approach. Now I'm getting this response is based on my experience, both of what I would like to hear and what I need to hear when I express, and also what I've felt and expressed and discovered when people open up to me. This is an evolving process, and thankfully I've read a lot on the topic, I've contemplated the topic, and I'm formally studying the topic in my Master of Counselling. What you need to do first is, well, first up, make sure they're safe. Make sure they are safe. Make sure that they are not in immediate danger. If you're face to face with the person, it's relatively easy. You can look, you can observe, you can ask. But if they're opening up online or over the phone, it pays to just make sure they're not in immediate danger of self-harm or suicide or, overdosing, all of those things. Make sure they're safe. You can ask, you can express, and these sort of things, but oftentimes doing too explicitly a check may be perceived as an attack or as a judgment. But you need to make sure they're safe. Safety first. You can heal emotions, you can heal upsets, you can heal almost everything other than the few things you can't. So just make sure people are safe. But beyond that, what do people want? What do people need? And I guess this is an interesting sort of response, because it depends on your circumstance with the person will determine, what they need from you. And that's why I led with safety. They need to be safe. They need to know that you are there to listen, that you are available to listen. And I guess this is where the next caveat comes. If your safety is compromised, if you don't feel you can hold space, if you feel that what is being said will be triggering to you, and I don't mean triggering as a little bit upsetting, I mean triggering in the proper way that it is meant to be, i.e. it is making you relive past trauma of yourself, then you need to protect your mental state. And protect it at all costs to make sure that you're not in, danger of self-harm or suicide or overdosing or anything like that. But also do it in a way that helps them. So if you cannot hold space, that's okay. But just do your best to comfort the person without going into the depths of the understanding of what they're saying. You don't necessarily need to hear the stories. You don't need to go into the details. But you can be there to comfort the person. Always ask consent. Even if they're a hugger, even if they're someone that is open to physical contact, if they're expressing something to you, it's always good to ask, like, hey, would you like a hug right now? Or can I give you a hug? Or, do you need something? Informed consent at all times. Don't make assumptions. But also, if they're in an emotional state, they may need you to be proactive. When I'm in this state, when I'm in the depths of pain, when I'm triggered, when I'm overwhelmed, I need to know that I am safe. Because when someone's in that state, when they're triggered, when they're overwhelmed, when they're expressing, they're reliving the past. and they're reliving the past. And that means that, quite literally from an experiential perspective, they are a scared, victimized, younger version of themselves, perhaps a child. And in that moment, that child needs comfort. That child needs to know that they're safe. And it's very easy or very tempting to get caught up in a dialogue with the person, talking about the abstract words, talking about the things that you can do to help in this moment, talking about the logic of it all. But the reality of being in that state is such that, and they've done scans to show this, when people are triggered, when they're in this sort of state, the frontal lobe shuts down. The reasoning ability, logic, talking, coordination, all of these things struggle. I know that I start to slur my voice and I'm banging my body. I'm not me. I need to be grounded. I need to be brought back to the present moment. This moment is safe. This moment is calm. This moment is real. Feel the ground. Take a slow, calm breath. Listen to the sounds. Check in to the present moment. With love, with safety. Co-breathing can help. A hand on each other's shoulder, looking into each other's eyes or into each other's, don't have to stare into each other's eyes. That might not be the best, but finding a way to co-regulate can help. Movement, walking. There's no one right answer, and you have to be sort of pretty cluey. And obviously everyone's different. But if someone is in an overwhelmed, triggered state, you calm them down first by grounding them. Not by saying, it's not necessarily, like the words do help, but the practical feeling of being safe in this moment helps more. You do both. And once they start coming back down to sort of into reality, they'll start talking. And obviously everyone's different, every circumstance is different, so I'm going to stop giving that caveat, but be aware that there's no one size fits all. This is a dance. It's an art form. It's a connection. But the best thing you can do is stay grounded yourself, stay calm yourself, and not allow what's happening to impact you, if possible. There's a part of you that can sit and talk and care and be comforting and comfort to the person and not sort of fall into it. They may say things that trigger you. They may say things that offend you. They may say things that are not true. But you need to validate what they're feeling, because in that moment it is true. In that moment they are overly emotional. So you're comforting, you're grounding, you're validating, you're connecting, you're responding, you're giving consent. You're making sure they're safe. You might want to help them do things to look after themselves. When I'm in this state, I forget to eat. So I need food, but I don't realize I need food. And if you asked me, do you want some food? I'd say no. But I know I need to eat it. So, here, have the food. Here's some food, put it in front of me. Tell me to take a bite. Calm, loving, firm, with love, suggesting what is needed. Same thing if they have a PRN, a medication that they need to take in response to these sort of things. Help them to get it. Help them to take it. With consent, of course. With safety, of course. I use Valium for this purpose. And just recently, my psychiatrist has suggested that I use Phenergan as another way as a PRN. That's fine. If they have a crisis plan, and you happen to be a part of that plan and you know what to do on it, follow it. If not, ask them if they have one. Ask them what you can do to help. But also be aware that you're speaking to someone that is not in their right mind necessarily. Once this process starts to begin, they'll start to unload and share. Like I said, if you're in a place to listen, do so. They want to be heard. They want you to listen. They want to be able to express. And they do not want to be judged. A couple of bad experiences in my life. Saw a psychologist, and I started to share. And the psychologist's reaction was like, oh my God, wow. Like, it was so over the top and so just theatrical and demeaning and just not on point. Other times I've had people not responding at all, just deadpan, like it was nothing. It's like, hey, didn't you just hear the depths of what I expressed just now? Acknowledge it. Once again, it's a bit of an art form, but find the balance. And I guess even just talking through this podcast episode with you, you will start to think from their perspective. They've chosen to share with you, either by choice or because it came in that moment. It is a responsibility. It is a burden. But it is one that can help them to heal. Your job is to be a loving mirror, reflecting back to them what they're offering, what they're saying, showing them that you've heard them with love, offering them to express more, offering them to go deeper, offering. Now, there will be a temptation to do two things, both of which you need to be careful with because they can be taken in absolutely the wrong light. And that is, 1, offering advice of how to fix the problem, and 2, offering personal stories of your own similar and related issues. Once again, every situation's different, every person's different, everything's different, obviously. But there's this joke, I guess, that it's like a couple is arguing and one person asks the other person, are we in venting mode or are we in problem solving mode? And it's just, I'm not saying to be that obvious or direct about it, but chances are when it first comes out, they're not looking for problem solving. They're looking for calming, grounding, regulation, because you cannot problem solve from a place of overwhelm. And if you're triggered, you're not able to solve that problem. But they might be insisting. So then it's like, okay, we'll talk through the problems in depth, and the act of talking through them calmly might help them to ground. But just gently explaining, it's like, hey, let's just calm ourselves down, check back into reality. If they've got grounding activities, if they've got activities that help regulate them, like for me, it's taking a shower. For me, it's sometimes it's exercise. It could be reading a book. There's a variety of different things that work for me. There'll be different things that work for you and for them. Standing on grass is a good one. Listening to certain music is another one. There are things that work for you. Find what works for them. And you can say, look, when we're calm, we'll be able to solve this problem. But the first problem is, how we're feeling. It's okay to feel these things. You need to validate the feelings. I've recently been confronted with quite a few, just in the last week. Like, this has happened to me 5 times. 5 separate people have expressed deep levels of trauma and pain and overwhelm and grief, and across the different spectrums, it hit down on many different paths, like bang, 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 bang. And also, from the other side of things, I've recently come to understand the depths of some trauma. I might talk about that in a different podcast. Massive trigger warning on that one, I suppose. My life needs to come with a trigger warning. But I have started expressing that to people, both calmly and also when being triggered and overwhelmed. So it's being hit from all sides. Validate the feelings. There is no wrong way to grieve. If someone dies and you feel a certain way, that way is normal. If you've been abused and you feel some affection, joy, love, connection, that's actually normal. But it's confusing. If someone passes and you feel sadness, loss, but also a bit of like relief, that is a normal response, but it's confusing and it will bring guilt. Validate it. What I'm learning in the books that I'm reading is that we all have different responses, and those responses vary on spectrums and go down different paths, but all of it is valid. If you can approach the person with unconditional positive regard, their feelings, their emotions, their lived experience right now is valid because that is what they're having. It cannot be unvalid. And I guess while you're doing all of this, keep checking into your own self. How are you feeling? Are you feeling grounded? Are you falling into the path of a trigger yourself? Because then it can become dysregulating for the both of you. So keep yourself grounded too. And on the other side of things, it is very, very tempting to offer stories of yourself in response. And, the counseling books I've read strongly advise against much of it, if any. Because whilst you may have experienced the same trauma, the same issue, the same loss, the same grief, in the sense of, your partner passed, their partner passed, or this happened to you, it had happened to them, your responses internally to it are different. Your lives are different. So you can't compare pain. You can't compare trauma. With a caveat. You can when you talk about it from a karma perspective, but what can happen is if I share my issues with you and then you go, oh, that's like what happened to me. Rather than, getting support, I'm now listening to you express your pain. But I'm struggling right now. So it's completely offside. And I think people do it because they feel like it helps to show empathy. It feels like it helps to sort of like, hey, I understand what you're going through because look, I've gone through something similar too, therefore I know. But if that was the case, if that's what you're actually trying to do and valid, very, true, then you don't really need to actually express that fact with your words. You don't need to say, hey, I've went through this as well. You just give them what they need. And you know what they need based on the fact that you know what you needed back when you needed it, when you were going through the thing that you were going to tell them about. So rather than sharing your version, your story, your pain, your issues, see, it's all about you. Listen and just give them what they need. What did you need in that moment? Did you need to hear about the person you were talking to's pain, or did you want to be heard? Right? Now, let's take them through. They've been grounded. They're starting to express, they're safe, they're starting to be listened to. Then they might start to need guidance or support because they'll be like, okay, well, what do I actually do here? Well, if you know the answer, if you know how to help them, if you can guide them through properly and, there's a way out or a thing that they could do, great. But most often or most likely there is not an easy fix, particularly if it's, coming out about something that has happened. If someone's passed, it's hard to fix that problem. If someone's expressing past trauma, it's hard to fix that problem, at least in that moment. But you can offer support. Now, to be clear, do not offer support for anything you're not willing to give. Yeah? People have opened up to me, like I said, recently, and past me would have been like, oh, I'm going to come and see you, I'm going to drop everything I can't afford to do that. In terms of my own mental state, that's crossing a line. In terms of my capacity to help and do that, it's crossing a line. In terms of my needs to look after my kids, it would put my life out to be the one to go there and sort of be the in-person rescuer. However, in a different sort of season of my life or a different sort of aspects or different times or for different people, perhaps I would have dropped everything and came. And there have been times where I have turned up and done that for people, multiple different people, being the one to come and, help through keeping people alive. And in terms of that, if someone is suicidal, once again, keep them safe. The three words, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, is apparent. Try everything first. Yeah? If someone's suicidal, you tell them to try everything first. Because you want to try everything before you do the one thing you can't take back. What can you try? What are some suggestions? Go on medication. See different therapists. Your current one isn't working, fire them and get a new one. You're in a bad relationship, break up. You are attracted to someone and you're too afraid to ask them out. Quit your job, change jobs, move house, sell your stuff and be a nomad. Start meditating, practice yoga, attempt to follow your dreams, write the novel, whatever it is, right? Sleep for a week. Try everything first, right? I'm emphasizing this because it's so important, because it's like, wouldn't it be an absolute shame to do something only to there to be it'd be an absolute tragedy to do that, only to know that there is or was a potential way to fix the problem, right? Try everything first. That's the first thing. And the second thing is when someone is in a depressed state, when they're overwhelmed, when they're in this space, there's like a lens over the top of their eyes, or like sort of cellophane. They are seeing the world through tinted, depressed glasses. And it's like, it's pointless, it's hopeless, there's no meaning, yada, yada, yada. If you're depressed, that's a problem. If you're happy, there's no meaning, yada, yada, it means you're free. It means you're free to do anything, it doesn't matter. Oh, it doesn't matter, oh, there's no point. Oh, it doesn't matter, it means there's, every reason to do anything, right? It's a reframe. So, and obviously this goes into the artistry, and I'm giving you a bunch of different tools here, but you can use logic to help overwhelming emotion, and you can even use emotion to help cold logic. So if someone is overly emotional, you give them the logic tool of try everything first. You talk them through it step by step what things will involve. You logically explain that, when you're happy, these same problems will be viewed differently. Doesn't help with everything, but it's a tool to use. If someone is overly logical and they're sort of like not embracing with their emotions, well, you engage some emotions there. The point is that you need to, read the room and sort of use the tools at your disposal, but all the while with the goal of keeping them regulated and making sure they're safe, letting them know that they've been heard. Eventually, though, the conversation will have to come to an end based on time, and you need to make sure that they are fine moving forward. And I suggest the way you do that is to offer to follow up. How are you doing? When I will message you in X amount of days to check in. And always, always, always make them promise to call you, if you can handle this, if this is, something that you're capable of, obviously. But make them promise to call you if they're at risk, and spell it out. I would prefer to have an awkward conversation than read about the ending of your life, right? Spell it out. Make them promise with their words. If you start struggling, call me. If you start struggling, tell me. Make them say it, right? And if you've done a good enough job of making sure they're safe, calming them down, getting them grounded, helping them through, helping them process, making sure they're listened, all of these sort of things, then you can express to them your feelings. Because you don't have to be like stoic and be like not feeling or something. You can say like, this is making me feel concerned for you. This is worrying, and this is why. Express the reality of your situation and play it back to them. Because, this is why I say to be the mirror. It's like, show them and express to them what you're seeing. It's like, hey, I came in here and you've taken a bunch of drugs and alcohol, or hey, you're talking about this sort of thing, or hey, that's pretty serious what you're saying that happened. Let me help you help yourself. And help them if they need it to get access to therapy. Help them get access to resources and community. Help them to do the things they need to do. Feed them. And then follow up if you can, and make them promise. Now, obviously I've been rambling a bit here. There's a whole variety of different approaches and different things, different needs. What I would encourage you to do is, if this is of a curiosity, I will suggest a few things. There will be resources like helplines and all of these things in your area. My audience is global, so there's no way that I can put up a list of helplines for everyone across every country that will listen, in every state and all of that jazz. But there are helplines. Look into them. If it's someone that you know and it happens regularly, talk with them and have a crisis plan. Protect yourself, look after yourself. And if there is specific advice or support or guidance you need down this path, I encourage you to, if it's a quick thing, shoot me a message on social media at Zach P. Phillips. You probably know where to find me. Shoot me an email if it's a small thing. But if you want to book a session, a coaching, mentoring, intuitive guidance session, if you want to work with me to talk through some of this, if there's stuff coming up that, you feel like you want to express to me and you think that I would be able to give active listening to you, I'm able to provide that service professionally for you. And if you would like to similarly talk through issues that maybe you're not having, but the people in your life are having, and you want to sort of talk through the game plan of how to best help them in a way that works, we can talk about that too. I encourage you to click through the links and check out the coaching. All of my prices are up and available. There's nothing hidden. I'm not playing that game that a lot of coaches online, all those things play of hiding the thing and all of these extra things. Fuck all that. I can't be bothered. It's just too much of a game. I want to help people.
So if you need that help, it's there. And I'll also link you to a couple of resources that I have on my website, and that might be of immediate assistance and guidance. Stay safe, reach out, and look, hopefully you never have to use what I've covered in this podcast, but if you do, hopefully it helps. And if you're at all concerned about someone, talk to them as well. Say, hey, let them know. I guess this is the final point. Let them know you're a safe person to talk to. When they open up, listen. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Catch you.